What they're claiming is that they went 1,000 times farther than they can send astronauts today, 50 years ago, on the first attempt with 1 millionth the computing power of a cell phone. And there's never been a technological achievement that no one could repeat 50 years later. It's like me telling you 50 years ago, Toyota made a car that could go 50,000 miles on a gallon of gasoline. And yet today, 5 decades later, the best car can only go 50 miles per gallon, or 1,000th the distance. You would laugh and say the original claim is preposterous. Or 50 years later, and now the farthest they can send an astronaut to the moon is 1,000th the distance that they claim to have done on the first attempt 50 years ago with less computing power than a cell phone, 1 millionth of the computing power. It just doesn't add up. It's never happened. It's also the only time that they deliberately destroyed a technology. I mean, the B-52 is 70 years old, and there's still 200 of them in service. And yet they admit they destroyed all the Apollo equipment, and they're claiming they have to go back to the moon and recreate it from scratch. They destroyed all the original videotapes, all the original blueprints. You would never do that if you really went. You would only do that if there was a fraud and you were trying to cover your tracks. What they're claiming is that
what they're claiming never happened. Title of my show today is there any truth left in the world? I'm JJ Carrell. Welcome to my show. I honestly, I think this is a very legitimate question. Is there any truth left in the world? And maybe one of the themes, there's many themes on this show, but one of the themes that I think that I weave in and out, and it is an overarching theme, is everything is connected. The lies, the propaganda, the actual physical things that are happening to our country, to the citizens, to the world, it's all interconnected. Nothing is happening on its own, separated from everything else. That's not true. The opposite is happening. The opposite is everything is connected to everything. I remember the moon landing, okay? I remember being in school, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade in the 70s, and being shown the video of the moon landing. And we all just like, okay, great, it's the moon landing. I can't remember seeing any footage or video of the moon landing until I was an adult, like 30s, maybe 40s. And it was in passing. It wasn't until like about, I'm going to be embarrassed to say this, is about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. Somebody that absolutely doesn't believe in the moon landing. And I used to think all these people were absolutely batshit crazy. And one of those crazy people that I looked at as highly intelligent said to me, "Have you really looked at the moon landing footage, the videos?" Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I saw them about maybe 20 years ago. And then I really remember seeing them when I was in like 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade, something like that. Well, let's sit down. I remember he's saying to me, let's sit down. Here's the moon landing footage. And I remember seeing it. And my first response is, come on, man. I know you're jerking my chain. Let me see the other footage. No, that is the official footage. I remember him leaving my office. I was at work, leaving my office. And I remember sitting there, embarrassed. How did this happen? How did someone that I think I'm intelligent, I'm not the smartest man in the room, but I'm intelligent. How did I believe this? And I know there's people in my audience who are like, oh my God, is this guy really? I didn't know he's like that. I used to be you. Not that I was gullible and believed everything. No, no. I kind of challenged and questioned most of the things in my life, but I just kind of accepted this, right? We went to the moon, and my grandparents lived in Merritt Island, so we'd see the space shuttle take off and all the rockets launching. And I just came to accept that that's what it is. And I remember sitting in my office and making a challenge to myself. Let's dig into this. Let's disprove this guy. Let's disprove maybe this is just the footage was just the footage and there's an explanation. And then I began to dive into like this gentleman. This gentleman is one of the biggest adversaries to the quote, the moon landing. And when you begin to listen to people like this say that the greatest human achievement in the history of mankind, flying a spaceship out into space on a rocket, having gentlemen stand on the moon, take pictures, get back into a rocket, shoot off the surface of the moon, get into the Earth's atmosphere, and land safely in the ocean. And when they did that, they destroyed everything. They lost it. The dog ate the homework. The greatest accomplishment in the history of mankind. Do you not believe all of the data, all of the calculations, all of the architecture, if you will, the diagrams, the how we did it? Don't you think you preserve that and put it in a museum behind glass? Like protective glass where you have to have 5 different sets of keys to get in, and then you have to go through a code and a retinal scan. I mean, to get in there. No, they destroyed it. They lost it. What are you talking about? You lost it. And then you begin to hear, well, we've never been back. Wow, that's strange. Well, I remember hearing that the first time. We've never been back. And I remember thinking in passing, well, that's strange, and just went on about my life. But I remember thinking, that's strange. Now I think, well, that's absurd. Of course they haven't gone back. Have you seen what the astronauts were wearing? They were wearing a glass fishbowl on their head. Do you know the degrees, the temperature that is up there? They were using a measurement of computing data than your cell phone. Some say less than a pocket calculator. Are you insane? Here's the best thing you can do. The best test. Here's the best test. And I did it myself. Somebody told me about it. I said, okay, I'll do it. You want to know how ridiculous it is, the moon landing and the footage? If you have a young child that's, say, 8, 9, 10, okay? They probably don't remember seeing the footage like I did. It's just like in passing. Sit them down and say, I want to show you a video. These are guys that went to the moon. And just show them without any context or anything. Just show them. And watch their expression. And then wait to what they say to you. They're going to say, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, Dad. That is so bad. That's such a bad movie. It looks ridiculous. Everyone can tell it's not real, Dad. That's a terrible movie. Okay, thank you. It is a terrible movie. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I love this gentleman's analogy. I created a Toyota car that will go 50,000 miles on a gallon of gas, but I threw away all that technology. Wait a minute, a gallon of gas, I can drive that car for about 20 years, 10 years at least on a gallon of gas? No. We used to do that, but we don't do it now. Well, why don't we do it now? Well, because we destroyed all that, and we don't know how to really get it back. Okay, wait a minute. That was what? 60 years ago ish. And we don't have the technology to replicate that? Nope. Sorry. Nope. I did something the other day before I was like, I gotta talk. I have to talk about this topic because it encompasses the world we live in. We live in a world of lies, propaganda and lies. And so I sat down and I said, okay, well, if I'm gonna do a show on this, let me write down. Like I like to physically write things down, not on a computer. Like when I write a book or something, I'll even write down on hard, like this is my chapters, this is the flow. So I said, okay, let me sit down and let me just do 2 columns. On the left, on the right is everything that I believe 100%. I actually believe 100% factually is the truth. And then on the left is a variation. It is things that I question. I could question it like 10%, or I absolutely 100% believe it is a lie. And I said, okay, let me sit down and do this. So I started thinking, and as I'm thinking of topics, I'm just writing them down. And it's depressing just to sit here and look at my list. I have like 1 or 2 things on the right, and they're basically all in the same. So it's really one thing. And I stopped on about 20 things on the left that I don't believe in or deeply question. And I was like, damn, it's worse than I thought. Like the way that I see the world is worse than I thought when you put it on paper. Well, let's just, the easy thing is just and the fastest is, what do I believe in? What is it that anchors me? Well, the only thing that I know with deep conviction, with absolute, there, as things happen in my life, some amazing things have happened in my life, and some very, very dark, horrible things have happened in my life. But one thing I never did. Now I might have lashed out and yelled at God, and like, I don't understand, and I still don't understand why you do certain things, but I never questioned his existence. Never. It's all around me. It doesn't matter if I hate him or I hate what he's done to me at that moment. There was no denying that God exists. If I am many things, and one thing I am not is I'm not a liar. And I will look at things and I will have to, even if it pains me at the moment, acknowledge their existence. And you look around and you know instinctively that a being of higher power created all of this, all of it. I don't have to understand it, and I never will understand it until I go to heaven, God willing. And then I'll understand everything. But right now, I don't have the intellect. I don't have the brain, the bandwidth to even comprehend the engineering of the eye, or how the brain works, or how I can look at something and instantly understand what it is. My soul. That is one, that, and that Jesus Christ is his son that he sent down down to earth to forgive our sins. And there's a Holy Spirit. There's the Son and the Father and the Holy Spirit. I believe that. 100% believe that there's a God. Outside of that, and outside of the belief of his natural order, his design natural order, I don't believe in anything. And that is frightening. And at the same time, it's liberating, because I do have an anchor. I do have an anchor that God created the world perfectly. We have jacked it up, but he has created it perfectly. But when I look at my other side, I I'm almost in disbelief. And I'm embarrassed of what I used to believe. The moon landing. We've never been back. 9/11. 9/11. I remember when I met my wife later after 9/11, and she said to me, this is all a lie. And I'm like, oh God, what? Sweetheart, please don't tell me. Please don't do this. You don't do this. And she's like, nope, it's the truth. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And I began to do my own research. And I remember telling her, I'll never forget this. I said, sweetheart, whatever you do not say this out loud, out of our house. Do not. You sound crazy. And it's horrible. You can't talk about this. And then I began to do my own research, and I began to question, because I want to disprove her. Where are the airplanes? Where's the debris? How did Building 7 implode like a demolition? How did that happen? How did 19 goat herders that learned how to fly, to take off and fly, not land, to fly, Cessnas, prop planes, where you have to go through extensive training. I have friends and family that are in the aviation world. They're not flying alone, and they've been flying for about a year and a half, like on jets. They're with instructors. They're not flying on their own. But 19 goat herders that lived in caves were able to take planes and make them do maneuvers that 30-year veterans said they cannot do because the plane is not built to do that. And then they find out the plane was going 100 miles an hour over the allowable speed. And they asked the pilots, what happens if you're able to go 100 miles an hour over the limit of, I think it's 450 miles? It says, well, the plane breaks apart. Where's all the plane debris in the Pentagon? Do you know in order to hit the Pentagon, that goat herder had to effectively land the plane? Land it. That's how low he had to get to hit the Pentagon. He would have had to land it perfectly. Never flown a jet. What? And wait a minute. There was furniture fire in Building 7 and the whole thing collapsed on itself? I want to just play this video, and it's connected to Richard Cage of the AIA. So these gentlemen, just a short, this gentleman, whenever a building falls, the Architects Association of International Architects, I think that's what it is, they get together and they go and they do a massive investigation on how a building fell down, because they don't want the building. They want to, what mistake did we make? We can't replicate that mistake. We have to correct it. And they went and they said there is no explanation except demolition. And everyone railed against him and said he's a fool and he's a liar. And I'm sure there's people watching this going, this guy's crazy. No, I think you're crazy. I think you absolutely are crazy to think that just on the surface, this is what happened. And the explanation is goat herders flew planes in. Let's listen to this man.
And he pointed to what turned out to be the entrance to Building 7's lobby. He said, go in there, take a break. These battalion chiefs come in through the revolving doors. There was 3 of them. They had the white helmets. I didn't get any IDs off them. But as soon as they stepped inside, what stepped in behind them were these 2 people in black with black ski masks on, and Uzis, and the Uzis were, you know, hanging off their necks. And I don't know what they were or who they were, but the battalion chiefs started yelling at us, right, ordering us to get out of this building, get out of this building. They're going to pull the building. Everybody out now. And they ordered us back out.
But I try and get back into 7 World Trade, and I go in there, and there's a guy at the bottom of the escalators with a long arm or machine gun, and he goes, "You can't come back in here." So I properly identify myself. I'm a sergeant from NYPD. Going on, he goes, "I don't care who you are, you're not coming back in the building." And I have this little 5-shot pea shooter. Am I going to really argue a guy with a machine gun? I'm not.
We then walked towards 7 World Trade, which indeed had a number of fires on various floors. We arrive at 7, and there were 2 paramilitarily clad men with black rifles, sunglasses. And as we approached the entrance, they closed ranks and said, one of them said, "This building has been secured," which is odd because in my experience in the FDNY, anybody preventing access to the fire department in the event of a fire, that's a criminal act. The chief and I were not in a position to argue the point, given the inequality in weaponry present. I was further than I was from when the North Tower went when 7 let go as well, and was also similar with, although not as loud because I was further away, a series of concussive explosions.
And he
Yep. I'm sure all those men were liars. I am sure that those men are liars. Let's listen to someone else talk about Building 7, someone that I have grown to really like. I find him to be a great investigative journalist, Ian Carrell. Let's just listen to him, what he has to say.
About how Building 7 has just collapsed, and in the background of the footage is Building 7 standing up.
Oh my God.
So they reported it like 30 minutes early.
Oh my God.
So there's all these things that just show a cover-up of something. And when you start to ask what's that something, the only explanations have to involve other intelligence agency operations, some sort of deep state operation, something going on. And so you start to ask, like, how could you possibly cover all that up? How could you possibly pull that many strings?
Well, maybe that's the whole point of it. They wanted to
A
do
little
something
bit.
so big that they're like, this is impossible.
A lie so
to
big
be
that it
fake.
can't be believed.
Exactly.
But there's another piece, and this is part of the report I'm working on right now, is that now we know that that was at the heyday of Epstein's influence in this country. That was the peak of Epstein's political blackmail operation.
Interesting.
Right? And so if you have Israel conducting a piece of this complex, multifaceted terror attack on U.S. soil, and you have Jeffrey Epstein operating at the same time with his talons, certainly in the Clinton White House, although by now it's Bush. But if you look at Bush's White House, it was just Israel firsters everywhere, all around. It was just a giant neocon convention. And you've got Jeffrey Epstein blackmailing like bankers and tech people and media people and government people. It's like, I don't know where the connection is, but I can't imagine it's a coincidence that they managed to cover up the biggest political cover-up, the biggest scandal in American history at the time.
Maybe that's how they got so many people to keep their mouth shut.
That's what I would assume, is that a lot of key players, I would assume,
There's videotapes of them with kids.
that were in on that cover-up. I think they were probably blackmailed to help.
Coincidences. We don't really believe in coincidences. What do you believe? I think Ian Carroll said that the best is, what are you believing? Like, What could it be? What could it be? And I don't know. That's a whole different. That's an hour, 2 hour show, 3 hour show, continuation shows. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm not even beginning to say that I have all the answers. The point of my show today is to show you all the lies. Not all of them. My God, I that would take a year's worth of shows just to even begin to scratch the surface. I'm looking at my notes here. I got things that I absolutely don't believe in, things that I have absolute conviction that doesn't make sense. That from 100% certainty that's fake to 10% certainty that nothing adds up. Moon landing, weapons of mass destruction, COVID, vaccines, Vietnam War, World War II. Did we side with the right group of people? Did we side with, as General Patton said after the war, it seems like we picked the wrong side in this war. Meaning we sided with the Russians, the Bolsheviks, that killed 30 million Christians instead of aligning with Germany and Hitler. That's General Patton. And he dies in an accident. He escapes the war and dies in a vehicle accident, I believe, a year or two later. I have to believe Israel is our greatest ally. I have to believe that. That has been jammed down my throat for my 50 plus years on this earth. I have to believe AIDS came from monkeys in Africa. I have to believe that all the religions are the same. I have to believe in the globe, flat earth, all the pictures of the quote sky and the stars and the moon. They all have been already debunked that they're fake. I have to believe that an old decrepit man with dementia won the 2020 election. I have to believe that the greatest threat to mankind is climate change, where the seas are going to rise, as Barack Obama said, and destroy the eastern coast, but he still buys $11 million house on Martha's Vineyard on the water. I have to believe that voter ID is racist. I have to believe that there are 157 genders. I have to believe that mutilating children's bodies are normal. I have to believe that we needed to kill 61 million babies in the womb. Let me throw out just something I heard yesterday and it shocked me. It's a little off topic, but right on the money. I watched a discussion where this individual came out and said Gen Z, it's like 30s to 13 right now ish. Okay. Do you know that an entire third, 33.33% of Gen Z has already died? What is the cause of that death or those deaths? And they asked random people: cancer, COVID, suicide. No. Nope. The Gen Z, 1/3 of all Gen Zs were killed in the womb by their mothers. Did you just hear what I said? 1/3. An entire third of an entire generation was killed in the womb. I'm supposed to believe that's normal? I'm supposed to believe, as I'm going to show this next clip, of the pyramids. My whole life growing up, looking at my textbooks, the pyramids in Egypt, they're the only pyramids on the planet. And they were built by slaves, malnutrition, ignorant, uneducated slaves. But the pyramids were so perfectly built that they can't replicate them today. And they're actually, you can't even put a razor blade between the stones. But the slaves pushed those stones through the sands. Oh, okay. And then somewhere around middle school, I find out, well, the new textbook says, well, they found some pyramids, not as great as those, but some pyramids in Mexico. And then it come find out, no, that's a lie. There's pyramids all over the earth. And then I find out, well, no, actually the pyramids in Egypt would have been covered in complete limestone, bright limestone. Then I find out that there's not even a crane today in 2026 that can hoist one of those blocks. And then we find, at least a year ago, that there's 8 cylinders underneath the pyramids that go 2,000 meters down into the earth. And then down at the bottom of 2,000 meters are 2 giant football field-sized rectangles where they believe water rushed through and created a cylinder of power. And now we're learning, well, maybe, not maybe, the pharaohs were not buried in there. Those were not burial chambers. Maybe they threw their dead bodies in there in some cave part of it, but that's not what it was for. Well, what was it for? Why do we have intricate buildings, like massive buildings with architecture and ornate carvings that no one of those times could have created? And all around these giant, beautiful buildings that litter our country and all over Earth, all around them are little shanty shacks that people lived in, but they built this spectacular cathedrals and buildings. I'm supposed to believe that? Again, this is all lies. Let's watch this. I find it fascinating. You believe it or not, I find it fascinating.
I want you to know this. What if I told you that nearly all the world's most iconic ancient structures were built with technologies far beyond what we understand today? These buildings are infused with hidden technologies designed to harness and manipulate energy. Take a look at these European cathedrals. There is more to the towering spires and stained glass windows than meets the eye. The spires acted as antennas, drawing energy from the skies, whilst the glass was infused with metal to amplify and direct this energy throughout the building. Resonant frequencies were used to heal and elevate consciousness within those walls. But it doesn't stop there. The pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, and the stupas of Asia are all built on powerful energy vortices, strategically placed to tap into the Earth's natural power. The ancients did not need wires or power lines to power their cities. I want you to know this.
What I find as I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, how do you articulate this to people that think that you're crazy? Well, I think at the baseline, you have to ask questions, right? Like I don't have the answer to that video or to 9/11 or to moon landing. I just know that nothing makes sense. Listen, when I go give speeches or I know that I'm going to have a debate with excuse me, I'm going to have a debate with someone, I like to speak it out loud. What I'm going to say to make sure it sounds right. It's coherent. Sometimes when you're in your own mind and you're thinking of what you're saying, there is no real sound of or correlation or change than when you speak it. When you speak it, it becomes live, right? There's just a different sound and different context, and you could sense it a different way. And I have done that same type of process, if you will, for when I begin to, somebody gives me moon landing or 9/11 or something, and then I start, what I like to do is gather up all the information that has been proven factually true, and then I like to speak it out loud to myself. I know it sounds crazy, but I'll go, okay, let's talk about 9/11, and I go down the 9/11. Let's talk about the pyramids and all of the information that is on pyramids. Let's talk about AIDS. Let's talk about COVID vaccines. And when you say this stuff out loud, it's absurd. Like it's absurd. Like you're speaking it and you're saying it to yourself at the same time. Nobody would believe this crap. Nobody in their right mind would believe this except if it was not put in multiple forms of propaganda. School, textbooks, video games, movies, literature. Constant drumbeat, constant drumbeat. Anybody that questions, think of this. Anyone that questions, we put them to the fringe of society and tell them they're mental patients, that they're crazy conspiracy theorists. It's all connected, though. It's all connected. And one way that it's connected is the absolute lie about where all the money is. Because I believe when it gets to the point, it's always about the money. It's always about power and influence and your life. This is no different. We're $38 trillion in debt. $38 trillion in debt. And you're going to tell me that's because we did bad spending. No. We're $38 trillion in debt because we allowed ourselves to be stolen. The powers to be stole 38 trillion. Do you understand how it's all connected? You need to be programmed. You need to be living in a matrix. You need to believe in absurdities and chase the next shiny object, the next massive thing that needs Black Lives Matter or George Floyd or the football game, or we need to get some pizza while they steal everything. Because you're believing in pyramids are built by slaves. You believe that Building 7 fell on its own. You believe that we needed vaccinations that needed 12 booster shots. You believed that you needed to stay in your house for over a year. Think about that. I just said that out loud. Did you hear me, what I said? We were forced to stay inside because of a phantom disease that was ravagingly destroying the world. You stayed inside. Do you understand now? While I tell you, with no filter or no fear, I don't really care what you think of me. I don't care if you think I'm way off. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Why don't you say a few of these things out loud to yourself and see and listen to how stupid it sounds? And then you'll begin to realize that we are a host and the parasites are feeding off of us.
You know, I mean, the reason I'm putting so much effort into this is that I think it is a very dire situation. It's not a, it's not optional, basically. So, yeah, America's going bankrupt. So that just can't happen.
It's just
America's going bankrupt, and that just can't happen. Okay. Let's stop for a second and let's think about this. I'm going to cue up this next. It's the next Elon Musk that I want to show. But I want you to try to understand. Elon Musk speaks differently. He has kind of a halting way, but not that halting. And I do this for a living. And I did it for a living. I still do it. As I listen and I listen to cadence, I listen to the words that are chosen, I look at the body language. That is a man that has seen a ghost. That is a man that got to look under the hood and see the engine and the engine has been cannibalized, that car ain't moving anymore. And he knows it. And he knows more than anybody that it's all going to implode and blow up. It's not an if, it's a when, and how bad. In an interview prior to that with Joe Rogan, he actually said that I'm afraid if I speak anymore, they will kill me. That is how bad the corruption and the fraud is. We need to pay attention to what these men say to us and how they say it.
What we saw there is just a tremendous amount of money being sent to non-governmental organizations. But actually, this, by the way, is I think one of the biggest sources of fraud in the world is government-funded non-governmental organizations. This is a gigantic fraud loophole where the government can give money to an NGO, and then there are no controls over that NGO. So they've given billions of dollars. In fact, we estimate tens of billions of dollars to NGOs that are essentially scams.
Essentially scams. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. We have been lied to about everything in my adult life. That it's not a society cannot sustain itself when it's built on lies and deception and fraud. There is a day of reckoning. Do I think that we are living in an age of awakening? Yes, I do. Do I believe that I will see the totality of the lies? No. Will my son, will his children? I think so. Then it becomes a very different question. And the question that needs to be answered is, how will they respond? And it'll be one of two ways. They'll either continue to stick their head in the sand and ignore all of the proof that we live in a matrix, or they will fight back. Will it be an explosion, like an explosion of anger and resentment and tearing everything down, or will they just quietly die off? I don't know. I do know this, that if we continue down this path that we are on right now, being a nation that is consumed and ruled and propagandized on lies, we continue to import our replacements, our nation will die. You may not like my analysis. You may not like the outcome, the manifestation that I say is going to happen. And my challenge to you is to try to find the data that I have been speaking, the way that I have laid it out, and try to convince me that that data is wrong. And you can't. You may disagree on when the demographics of America will flip, demographics of Western Europe will change, when the realization of lies that will come up to the surface and everyone will see it. We may disagree on when it will happen, but you and I both know that something is going to happen. And if you don't like my outcome, my analysis, but you have to agree to my data, then why don't you tell me what you think is going to happen to our country and to our world? Right now, you are seeing the invasion of third worlders with IQs below that of mental retardation being swept into Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and America. 2060 is the time that UK flips. The Netherlands, Belgium, Sweden, they're in maybe a decade they flip. Ireland, 6% of all births last year, 6% were just to Irishmen. The rest were foreign nationals. They're done. Belgium, 80+% of everyone under 18 is a foreign national. They're done. America, whites are in the minority by the time of 2040. I believe it will be closer to 2035. You don't have to like those numbers. You can argue with me about 5 years here, 10 years there, whatever. We'll just agree that we will, the white Americans, the white Europeans, the white Australians, the white New Zealanders, will become a minority in their country. You will see a genocide of the white population. That is the majority first world. But it will be invaded by the third world. Are you going to tell me if we're going to have an intellectual discussion and I bend my data and I say, okay, I'll agree with you. It's 2050. Everything's going to change. The demographics will become white minority. Are you going to have an intellectual argument with me that the 2020, the 2050 model of the world, where whites are the minority in Europe, in America, New Zealand, Australia, where the cradle of civilization, where the innovation of all of the niceties of the world are dead. You're going to tell me that world in 2050 is better than the world that we're in now, or the world where we were in 50 years ago? Are you going to have that conversation with me? Are you honestly going to have that discussion and try to convince me? You're an abject fool if you believe that. My sponsor today is sat123.com, sat123.com/JJ. Be prepared. My son went to school today with a ballistic backpack. I've told you this before. I drop him off at school and I'm like, damn, my son, I love him so much. He got a ballistic backpack. And as I drive away, I go, damn, you just dropped your son off with a ballistic backpack. This is how crappy our world has become. I believe on being prepared. Being prepared always. You may not believe the same things I believe in or see the things the way I see things, but I see things the way I do because of the world that I grew up in. I want to be prepared. I want my family prepared. So I go and I partner with Sat123, sat123.com/JJ. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to go to sat123.com/JJ. Just look at the website, and something amazing happens when you call if you go on the website and find the number and call them. It's going to be shocking to your system. You're actually going to get a hold of somebody that speaks English and it lives in America. Shocking. I just see my guest just came on, and I haven't seen them in a while, and I'm stoked that they're on. And they are a sponsor of my show, and that's Pet Club 24/7. You can go to truthwithjj247.com. I'm going to bring them on there. Kurt and Kristen, they are in incredible Christian couple that owns Pet Club 24/7, and they are incredible. Let me bring them on. Just let me get my grouping up. There we are. Guys, how are y'all doing today?
Great, JJ. So good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How's the weather in the western part of the world?
Beautiful.
70 today.
Warm.
Nice.
You know you're supposed to lie to me. You're supposed to say it's horrible. It's horrible. Listen, before we get into it, I want you to please reintroduce yourself to my audience, as I've changed platforms. I have grown significantly since the last time that we have spoken. Can you just tell us about your company and why it's so important in today's world with health?
Absolutely. Well, we're a company that we started just over 9 years ago, and we're focused on bringing changes to the pet industry with bringing solutions that don't have the bad ingredients. Most people don't know, JJ, that 65% of our pets are getting cancer today, 1 in 3 allergies, 6 million new cases of diabetes. And our pets are living half as long as they used to. In the 70s, the average age of a golden retriever was 17, and today that age is 9. And so we wanted to do something about it, bring healthy solutions, everything sourced, made right here in the USA, and doing it right. And that's what we're about, is just bringing great products along with, you know, a mushroom that's just doing exceptional things for immune systems. And we add that to these products. It's just been amazing what we've been able to accomplish. And all the pets we're helping, extending lives, helping people keep them out of the bed, and potentially putting thousands of dollars back in their pocket by keeping them out of the bed and keeping them healthier. And, you know, we have testimonials to back it.
And it is also for humans too, correct?
Yep, a lot of people were seeing so many positive results with their pets, and knowing that pets don't know what a placebo is. They have no clue there's a mushroom in the cookie or the gravy that we're giving them. So they started asking where they can get these really pure and potent extracts from for people, even though everything's human grade. They didn't want to eat dog cookies. So we have a human part on the website as well, where people can get tablets and capsules of really quality mushroom extracts grown on contaminant-free substrates with a pharmaceutical grade extract. So God is doing amazing things through the work that we're doing, and we're so grateful.
Are you telling me that there's a higher being that actually created the world? Are you that's blasphemy. I thought we came from, we need the pharmaceuticals. Listen, part of my show today is you can't believe anything. Like you can't, I believe this is, I'm not throwing this on you guys. I can't or do not trust anyone. I don't know if it's 24 years in law enforcement, living life. I don't trust anybody. And I want this dovetails exactly into what I have been speaking about today. And I want to play this video for you guys. And I want you to, and I know you're on top of it because we've talked about this before, is the number of vaccinations that we give to our little babies as they come out of the womb. And we don't look at the baby and go, dang it, look how great God is. We look at the baby and go, God is so ineffective. We're going to now have to give that baby shots. So now HHS has changed the amount of vaccines and shots. I just want to show you this video for a minute and get your comments on it. Okay.
Breaking the massive Maha move. The Trump and Kennedy HHS is dropping the number of vaccines it recommends for every single child in America. Secretary RFK Jr. says, after an exhaustive review of the evidence, we are aligning the U.S. childhood vaccine schedule with international consensus while strengthening transparency and informed consent. This decision protects children, respects families, and rebuilds trust in public health. O'Neill added, they went from 23 doses for 7 diseases in 1980 to more than 80 doses for 18 diseases. The CDC will still recommend measles, polio, whooping cough, HPV, and chickenpox. So in other words, we have absolutely nothing to worry about, but these truthful facts are not going to stop every Democrat on your newsfeed from being like, they're gonna get rid of the polio vaccine. You're informed, they are not. I'm up here now. I also wanted to point out this quote from this Politico article, which I found interesting. These shots will be recommended under a concept known as shared clinical decision-making, which emphasizes conversations between healthcare providers and patients before choosing to vaccinate. Were we not doing that before? Thank God for President Trump and Secretary Kennedy working together to fix healthcare in this country. We really are making America healthy again.
We are. He's doing it. What is your take on that video of those vaccines? And now maybe the bigger question is what the hell happened to all the other things that we needed to take? It ended and no one even told us. Holy cow. What's your take on this?
Suddenly disappeared. Yeah, we're so excited about this because with what we do and the information and what we've learned about the human body and the body of our pets naturally have defense mechanisms built into them, immunization systems called the immune system. already built into our pets, already built into people, as if there's some type of intelligent design involved, right?
No, hush
So
your
random.
mouth.
So these immunizations and this whole defense system's already naturally built into the body. So all along we've been asking questions, like you said, like, why is this necessary? Why are we definitely injecting something into a body, especially something as pure and innocent like a baby or a puppy or a kitten, right? Why are we definitely injecting something into them that they may or may not get within their lifetime? And then if they do get it, they may or may not survive or be able to recover themselves. So there's all of these questions and possibilities, but we're definitely injecting these things into the body because these things may or may not happen sometime in the future. It's just absurd to me. And so we've always questioned it, and it's always bothered us. And, especially with the babies, it's so funny because the American Academy of Pediatrics, guess who's opposing these changes the most? The American Academy of Pediatrics. Guess where they get funding from?
Yes, the vaccine makers. Yes, it goes round and round. It's crazy.
It's crazy. So this is something that we've been trying to teach people, like you said, making informed decisions, right? Understanding what we're putting into the body, what's happening inside of the body once these things are put into it. And God has given us all of these natural allies in mushrooms that they intelligently nourish our bodies in ways that no other plant or medication or botanical or oil can. And God designed it that way. So as we've been educating people and showing them, hey, this is the original order, this is the natural order and the way things were intended to be, and we're returning back to that, we're way by what seems to be miraculous. But at the end of the day, we're eating the foods God intended us to eat, and our bodies are doing what God intended them to do. And we're getting to be a part of the restoration of those processes and really of creation and as a total.
Well, and Kurt, what would you say, or what's your take when I watch it? My take is, my very first thought that pops in my head is, wait a minute, what happened to those other diseases that yesterday, not 20 years ago, yesterday just miraculously disappeared? So either you're lying, like something magical happened, or you've been giving me shots and generations of shots for no reason. Is there an explanation for this?
That's the first thing that came to my mind as well, JJ, is how in the world you go from 80 to 11 if they're so substantial for our children to be having. And we know we know why they were there to begin with, when they introduced the Vaccine Act in 84 and then, subtly, next thing you know, all these vaccines are out there when they weren't necessary even at that time. And it was all based around, money, as we all know. And so I'm like you, it angers me. I grew up in a military family, a father in law enforcement. And so I question everything as well, just like you do. And I'm so angered by it. I'm just thankful that, our children, we kept them away from those things, and they're amazing. They're doing incredibly.
Thriving.
Yeah.
If I had to do it again, my son's 14. If he was born today, he would get none.
Right.
None. And we had to fight to get him not getting shots for genital warts. My son wasn't sexually active at newborn stage, so he didn't have to worry about getting genital warts. For God's sake, can any of us wake up like an adults and open our brain and go, what in God's name are you trying to do to my kids? Would you, if you had children today, would you give them vaccines?
Absolutely not. No question.
No. Isn't it amazing how fast the world has changed, guys? 5 years ago, 8 years ago, people would almost gasp like, oh, they're Christian lunatics, right? You Christian lunatics. No, we were just ahead of the game. Guys, let's not wait this long. Let's come back on. Let's talk, because I want to talk about, like, my dog Cinnamon. I give her your treats. She doesn't eat plastic garbage anymore, and she's doing great. So I want to talk about that, and I just want to have you back on because I love talking to you. I love talking to people that believe in God's natural divine order, and that unbelievably there was a divine creator of all this earth. It didn't happen in a big bang out of nothing. Do you know how much faith you have to believe in that everything came from nothing? Do you see
Right?
how absurd it is when you hear it? Question everything, guys. Go enjoy your 70-degree weather as I'm looking out and I got clouds and rain and snow in the forecast. Next time you come on and I say, hey, how's the weather? I want you to say it's miserable. It's horrible. just lie to me. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great week. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Bye-bye. That is Kurt and Kristen from Pet Club 24/7. Incredible company, incredible couple. Go to Truth with JJ Carrell. Excuse me, truthwithjj247.com, truthwithjj247.com. After speaking to them, it is more and more. You must question everything and everyone.